I walked into the house and felt that something was wrong. There was a faint smell of men's cologne in the air, not mine. I heard whispering from the bedroom, then laughter. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just betrayal, it was a carefully planned game for my money. I still remember the day I met Catherine. It was at a charity gala in downtown Boston, one of those events where the well-heeled gather to be seen donating to worthy causes. I wasn't particularly wealthy then, just a junior partner at Wilson & Marsh Financial Advisors with a promising future ahead. She stood across the room in a midnight blue dress that matched her eyes, laughing at something someone had said. Our eyes met, and the world seemed to shift on its axis. She walked over, introduced herself, and within minutes I was captivated. Catherine Hayes was beautiful, yes, but it was her sharp wit and the way she listened when I spoke that drew me in. By the end of the evening, I had her number and a promise for dinner the following week. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Within 6 months, we were practically inseparable. Catherine had graduated from Boston University with a degree in fine arts and worked at a small gallery in Cambridge. She talked passionately about opening her own boutique someday, showcasing local artists who deserved recognition. "You're different, Michael," she'd tell me, tracing her finger along my jawline. "You actually see me, not just what I can do for you." A year after we met, I proposed at the public garden, down on one knee among the tulips with a ring that cost 3 months' salary. When she said yes, I thought I had everything I'd ever wanted. The wedding was small but elegant, Catherine's taste was impeccable. My parents flew in from Chicago, beaming with pride as I waited at the altar. Her family was smaller, just her mother and an aunt from Philadelphia. She'd mentioned her father had passed years ago, and they hadn't been close to extended family. We bought a colonial-style house in Wellesley, a suburb with good schools and tree-lined streets. It stretched my finances, but I'd just made full partner and the future looked bright. Catherine decorated it beautifully, turning it into a showcase that could have graced the pages of Architectural Digest. "This is our forever home," she whispered the night we moved in. We made love on a mattress on the floor, surrounded by unpacked boxes, planning our future between kisses. We adopted a chocolate lab named Winston from a local shelter. I worked hard, often leaving before dawn and returning after dark. The financial services industry rewards dedication with substantial bonuses, and I was determined to give Catherine everything she deserved. 2 years into our marriage, Catherine decided to pursue her dream. "I want to open that boutique gallery we talked about," she said over dinner one night. "I found the perfect space in Newbury Street." The location was prime, and priced accordingly. The startup costs would be significant, but I believed in her vision. We set up an LLC, with Catherine as the primary owner but me providing the capital. I transferred a substantial sum into the business account and helped her navigate the paperwork and permits. Artisan Collective, she named it. A place where talent meets opportunity. I attended the grand opening, watching proudly as Catherine charmed potential clients and artists alike. Sales were slow at first, but she assured me this was normal for new galleries. Each month, I'd transfer money to cover the rent, utilities, and her modest salary. "It'll turn around soon," she promised. "These investments take time." I trusted her completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife, my partner, the woman I planned to raise children with someday. By our 3rd anniversary, I was working 60-hour weeks. The firm had taken on several institutional clients, and managing their portfolios required constant attention. I was exhausted but satisfied, knowing my hard work was building our future. It was a Wednesday in April when everything changed. I'd closed a major deal ahead of schedule, and my boss suggested I take the afternoon off. "Go surprise that beautiful wife of yours," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. I stopped at Winston's Flowers, picking up a bouquet of white lilies, Catherine's favorite. I thought we might go out for an early dinner, maybe catch a show at the theater. It had been too long since we'd had a date night. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar black BMW parked across the street. In our quiet neighborhood, I knew most of the neighbors' vehicles, but this one was sleek, expensive, and unknown. I unlocked the front door, flowers in hand, and stepped inside. Immediately, something felt off. The house was quiet, but not empty quiet. It was holding its breath quiet. Then I caught it, a scent in the air that didn't belong. A cologne, masculine and expensive, definitely not mine. I prefer subtle fragrances, but this was bold, assertive. I set the flowers down on the entryway table and listened. The house creaked slightly overhead, our bedroom. Then I heard it, a hushed laugh, quickly stifled. Catherine's laugh, but different somehow. More intimate than I'd heard in months. I moved quietly up the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. Each step seemed to take an eternity. I didn't want to reach the top. I didn't want to know. The bedroom door was ajar. Through the crack, I could see our king-sized bed reflected in the dresser mirror. Catherine's bare back, her dark hair cascading down, and beneath her, a man I'd never seen before. Tanned, muscular, his hands on my wife's hips. Time seemed to freeze. I stood there, unable to move, unable to process what I was seeing. Then Catherine turned her head, caught sight of me in the doorway, and our eyes locked. "Shit," she gasped, scrambling off her lover. The man twisted around, revealing a chiseled face that belonged in a luxury watch advertisement. He didn't look embarrassed or even surprised, just annoyed at the interruption. I should have shouted. I should have demanded explanations. I should have thrown him out of my house. Instead, I felt an eerie calm descend over me. Without a word, I turned and walked back downstairs. "Michael, wait." Catherine called, her voice panicked. I heard the rustle of clothing, footsteps hurrying. I picked up the lilies from the entryway table and walked out the front door, closing it quietly behind me. I got into my car and drove, with no destination in mind. The flowers lay on the passenger seat, already beginning to wilt in the April heat. I ended up at a hotel downtown, checking in with nothing but the clothes on my back and my wallet. I ordered room service and a bottle of Macallan 18, then sat by the window overlooking the city as night fell. Catherine called 17 times. I let each call go to voicemail. After midnight, I finally listened to her messages, each one more desperate than the last. "Please come home, we need to talk. It's not what you think. I made a mistake, Michael, please. Just give me a chance to explain." But her final message, left at 11:42 p.m., was different. "You know what? Fine. I'm not going to beg. You're never home anyway. What did you expect?" That's when I knew. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was who she was. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I made a plan. Catherine had betrayed me, but I wouldn't confront her in anger. No, I would be strategic. Methodical. I would understand the full scope of her betrayal before I made my next move. The next morning, I called the office and took a week of personal leave. Then I contacted Thornton Investigations, a discreet firm recommended by a colleague who'd gone through a messy divorce years earlier. By noon, I was sitting across from James Thornton, a former Boston PD detective with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Tell me everything," he said, and I did. For the next week, I stayed at the hotel, going through the motions of my life while Thornton's team followed Catherine. I returned to work, maintaining a facade of normalcy. Catherine's calls had stopped, and in their place came texts, alternating between apologies and accusations. "I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt you. If you'd been more present in our marriage, this wouldn't have happened. Please come home so we can work this out. You're being childish by avoiding me." I responded to none of them. 7 days after I'd walked in on my wife with another man, Thornton called. "We should meet in person," he said, his voice giving nothing away. An hour later, he slid a folder across the table at a quiet bar in the financial district. "His name is Daniel Harrington," Thornton said as I opened the file. "Goes by Dan. 34, works in commercial real estate. Divorced, no kids. He and Catherine have been seeing each other for approximately 14 months. 14 months. Nearly half our marriage." The photographs showed them together at restaurants, entering hotels, walking in the public garden, where I had proposed. There were screenshots of text messages Thornton had somehow obtained, explicit exchanges that made my stomach turn. But what hit me hardest was the financial information. Thornton had run a deep background check that included tracing money movements between accounts. "She's been transferring funds from your joint account to a personal account you don't appear to be aware of," he said, pointing to a series of transactions. "Approximately $12,000 per month for the past year. And the gallery? I had one of my people go in as a potential buyer. The inventory is minimal, and what's there is drastically overpriced. It's not making sales, Mr. Preston. It's a shell." I stared at the numbers, doing the mental math. Nearly $150,000 siphoned from our joint account, plus the initial investment in the gallery in monthly expenses, close to $400,000 in total. "There's more," Thornton said, turning a page. "Harrington has a pattern. He targets wealthy women, usually married, establishes relationships, and somehow always ends up benefiting financially. No criminal charges, but 3 separate women have filed civil suits against him in the past decade. All settled out of court with NDAs. So Catherine wasn't just cheating. She was being played by a professional, and using my money to pay for it." "What do you want to do with this information?" Thornton asked. I closed the folder. "I want to be very careful and very thorough," I said. That night, I contacted Morris Shapiro, the best divorce attorney in Boston. His retainer was astronomical, but I knew I'd need someone ruthless. "Don't confront her yet," Shapiro advised after reviewing Thornton's evidence. "We need to secure your assets first. Any joint accounts, investments, property, we need to protect everything before she realizes what's happening." Over the next 3 days, I executed Shapiro's plan with clinical precision. I opened new accounts at different banks. I contacted our investment firm, thankfully not the one where I worked, and, citing concerns about unusual activity, froze our joint portfolios. I spoke with our insurance agent, our estate planner, our accountant. Each night, I returned to the hotel, ignoring Catherine's increasingly frantic messages. "The credit card was declined today. What's going on? Why can't I access our investment account? Michael, this is ridiculous. Call me back now." On day 4, I had the locks changed on the house. Our mortgage was solely in my name, a quirk of timing, as Catherine's credit had been in transition when we purchased the property. I'd always meant to add her to the deed but somehow never got around to it. Next, I turned my attention to Artisan Collective. The gallery lease, business license, and all vendor agreements were in the LLC's name, but as the primary investor and signatory on most documents, I had considerable leverage. I contacted each artist represented by the gallery, informing them of an immediate change in management due to financial irregularities. Most were understanding, especially when I promised to honor all existing agreements once an audit was complete. Then I called the gallery's landlord, explaining the situation in carefully vague terms that nonetheless conveyed potential fraud. The landlord, concerned about illegal activities on his property, agreed to a temporary closure pending investigation. Finally, I froze the gallery's business accounts and redirected all incoming payments to an escrow account controlled by Shapiro's firm. By the end of the week, Catherine had been effectively cut off from every financial resource we'd shared. The house she couldn't enter. The gallery she couldn't open. The credit card she couldn't use. The investment accounts she couldn't access. I was back at work, focused and performing better than ever. Something about having a clear enemy had sharpened my mind. My colleagues noticed my intensity but attributed it to dedication. Only my boss knew the truth, and he'd given me his full support. "Take whatever time you need," he'd said. "Just don't let her take you for everything you're worth." It was nearly 2 weeks after Discovery Day when Catherine made her grand appearance at my office. I was in a meeting with clients when my assistant buzzed in. "Mr. Preston, your wife is here. She seems upset." I excused myself, assuring the clients I'd return shortly. As I stepped into the reception area, I saw Catherine pacing, her normally perfect appearance disheveled. When she spotted me, her eyes narrowed. "How dare you," she hissed, striding toward me. "How fucking dare you do this to me?" I gestured toward a small conference room. "Let's not do this here," I said quietly. Once the door closed behind us, she exploded. "You've ruined everything. The gallery is padlocked. My cards are declined everywhere. I can't even get into our house." Tears streamed down her face, smearing her mascara. "You think you can just throw me away? After everything I've done for you?" I sat down calmly, regarding her with what I hoped was complete indifference. "Everything you've done for me," I repeated. "Like sleeping with Dan Harrington for over a year. Or stealing nearly $500,000 from our accounts." Her face went white. For a moment, genuine fear flashed in her eyes before she recovered. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I have the bank records, Catherine. The hotel receipts. The text messages. I know exactly how long it's been going on and exactly how much you've taken." She changed tactics, her expression softening as she took the seat across from me. "Michael, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But we can work through this." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Don't throw away our marriage over one indiscretion." 14 months is not an indiscretion," I said. "It's a lifestyle choice. And it's not the affair that ended our marriage. It's the theft." Her face hardened. "Fine. You want to play hardball? I'll take you for everything in the divorce. Alimony, half of everything we own, your retirement accounts. You'll be paying me for decades." I smiled for the first time. "Actually, you won't get much. The house is solely in my name. The investment accounts show systematic unauthorized withdrawals by you. That's theft, Catherine, and it negates most community property claims. The gallery was funded with stolen money. Your financial misconduct is so well documented that my attorney believes you'll be lucky to walk away without criminal charges." She stared at me, speechless. "I suggest you find a good lawyer," I continued, standing up. "Though you may have trouble paying the retainer." As I reached the door, she called out, her voice cracking. "You've ruined my life." I turned back, raising an eyebrow. "You were doing the same to me." Catherine moved in with Dan Harrington that weekend, taking only her personal belongings from the house. I had changed the alarm codes and installed security cameras, just in case she got any ideas about returning when I wasn't home. For a while, I heard nothing. Shapiro filed the divorce papers, citing irreconcilable differences rather than adultery or financial misconduct, a strategic decision to keep our options open. Catherine was served at Harrington's condo in Back Bay. Life settled into a new rhythm. I returned home, where Winston greeted me with undiminished enthusiasm. I worked, spent weekends hiking the trails around Wellesley, occasionally met colleagues for drinks. On the surface, I was handling things well. Inside, I felt hollow. Not because I missed Catherine, the woman I thought I'd married had never actually existed, but because I'd been so thoroughly deceived. I'd built my life around a lie, and now I had to reconstruct my understanding of the past 3 years. Then, 6 weeks after Catherine moved out, I received a text from an unknown number. "Can we meet?" I need to talk to you about Catherine Hayes. The message came from Eliza Warner, who, I soon learned, was Dan Harrington's ex-wife. We met at a quiet cafe in Cambridge, away from the financial district where I might be recognized. Eliza was elegant, composed, and visibly angry, not at me, but at the situation. I tried to warn other women about him, she said after we'd ordered coffee. But the settlement agreement included an NDA. Technically, I'm violating it by talking to you, but after what he did to me, I don't particularly care. She explained how she'd met Dan, fallen in love, and married him within a year. How he'd gradually isolated her from friends and family. How money had started disappearing from their accounts. How she discovered he was cheating with multiple women. Dan doesn't love Catherine, she said bluntly. He loves what she can provide, or what he thought she could provide through you. Now that the money's gone, he's already looking for his next target. How do you know? I asked. Eliza smiled thinly. Because I've been watching him. After our divorce, I made it my mission to understand exactly who he is and how he operates. I have friends who keep me informed. Before we parted, she handed me a thumb drive. Evidence I couldn't use because of the NDA. Bank records, photos, recordings. It won't help your divorce, you already have what you need, but it might give you some closure. That night, I reviewed the contents of the drive. It was a disturbing catalogue of Dan Harrington's predatory behavior, not just with Eliza, but with at least 4 other women before Catherine. His pattern was consistent: identify a wealthy target, establish a relationship, begin extracting resources, move on when the well ran dry. 3 days later, Catherine texted me. Dan kicked me out. Said I wasn't contributing enough. Can we talk? Please. I didn't respond. 2 more texts followed over the next week. I know I've made terrible mistakes. I want to make amends. I miss Winston. And I miss you. Can we at least discuss things like adults? Still, I maintained my silence. The final message came a month later, after Shapiro informed me that Catherine had finally retained counsel, a mediocre attorney known for taking cases on contingency. I realize now what I've lost. Not just the house or the money, but you. You were the best thing in my life, and I threw it away for someone who never cared about me. I'm staying with my mom in Philadelphia. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. I showed the message to Shapiro, who snorted. Classic manipulation. She's hoping you'll soften the terms of the divorce out of residual affection. He tapped his pen against the settlement draft we were reviewing. Don't fall for it. I didn't. The divorce was finalized with terms heavily in my favor. Catherine received a one-time payment that barely covered her legal fees, and that was it. No alimony, no property division, no ongoing financial connection of any kind. I sold the house in Wellesley, too many memories, and bought a smaller place in Cambridge, closer to work. Winston adjusted to the new environment with typical canine adaptability. I was promoted to senior partner, my focus during the divorce having impressed the firm's leadership. Occasionally, I'd hear updates about Catherine through mutual acquaintances. She'd moved back to Boston, was working at a different gallery, dating someone new. I felt nothing when I heard these things: no anger, no jealousy, no satisfaction. Just a dull acknowledgement of information about a stranger who once shared my life. Dan Harrington disappeared from Boston's social scene after a messy public confrontation with another woman's husband at an upscale restaurant. Rumor had it he'd relocated to Miami to start fresh with the same old playbook. As for me, I was rebuilding. Not just my life, but my capacity to trust. It would be a long process, I knew, but I had time. And I had learned valuable lessons about vigilance, about paying attention to the details, about trusting my instincts. Some nights, as Winston snores at the foot of my bed, I wonder if I'll ever fully open myself to someone again. The risk seems enormous, the potential for pain too great. Then I remember how it felt in those early days with Catherine, the joy, the connection, the sense of possibility. It was real for me, even if it wasn't for her. Perhaps someday, I'll find that again, with someone deserving of trust. Until then, I'll continue moving forward, one careful step at a time, protecting what's mine and remembering that even the most convincing facades eventually reveal what lies beneath. Last week, I received a letter, actual paper mail, a rarity these days. No return address, just my name and new address in neat handwriting. Inside was a brief note from Eliza Warner. Thought you might want to know, Dan's latest target figured him out early. She's pressing charges. Criminal court, no NDA possible. If you're interested in making a statement, contact Detective Rivera at Boston PD. Maybe we can stop him for good this time. I haven't decided what I'll do yet. Part of me wants to leave the past buried, to focus on the future I'm carefully constructing. But another part wonders if I owe it to the next potential victim to speak up, to add my voice to those finally being heard. Catherine might have been complicit in Dan's schemes, or she might have been another victim who responded by becoming a predator herself. Either way, the damage she did was real, and the lessons I learned were valuable. The letter sits on my desk, waiting for my decision. Winston watches me with soulful eyes as I pick it up each evening, only to set it down again, unresolved. Tomorrow, perhaps, I'll decide. For now, I'm taking each day as it comes, guardian of my own heart, architect of my own redemption.